We're here. All right. So, did I tell you that my name is Dawn and that I'm the founder of She Recovers? And I don't know if any of you have heard about She Recovers, but we are an international movement of women in self-identified in or seeking recovery. And we say recovery. I know that you don't use that term a lot over in the UK, according to Laura, but it's something that has become, hi Mandy, it's something that is quite common to talk about here in North America. So that's certainly what we named our movement when we started it back in 2011. So the people, and particularly the self-identified women who have joined us in our community, really talk about being in recovery from substance use disorders, some of them not too seriously disordered, maybe just sober curious, others who have really hit rock bottom and are again in recovery, and everybody else kind of along the spectrum. But we're also a community for women in recovery from all sorts of other things. So codependency, love addiction, disordered eating, gambling, sex addiction, grief, people who have chronic illness, all of the things. Our main kind of tagline is we are all recovering from something. And I guess the second most important guiding principle of She Recovers is that we get to define what we are in recovery from, how we call ourselves, if we label ourselves or not, and we get to recover in the exact way that we choose to. So nobody can tell us how to recover. We believe that we need to be supported to find and follow individualized pathways and patchworks of recovery, which means that we get to develop our own path to wellness. And really for us, recovery for me is very much about recovering our potential. I don't consider myself a broken person who needs to be regenerated or put back together. I'm just a human being, and there have been some maladaptive behaviors in my life that I've worked on very hard. And really, my whole life is just about living my very best life, whatever that looks like. And for me, it's meant creating a practice of recovery. So I try very hard to keep those maladaptive behaviors under control, and I mostly succeed at them. I haven't had a drink of alcohol since July 20th, 1987. I went to treatment at that time for cocaine, alcohol, pot, pills, codependency. I was in an abusive relationship. I was the abusee, not the abuser. And so I went to treatment, and when I came out of treatment, and since I've come out of treatment in 1987, I have not drank alcohol or done cocaine. That's just been my choice, and it's worked really well for me. I know that it's not everybody else's choice to be abstinent from all drugs and alcohol, but it's certainly what's worked for me. I did smoke a lot of pot for the first 2 years after I got out of treatment. I actually ended up back in a treatment center because I got absolutely wired to marijuana. So since 1989, I haven't been smoking any pot either. What happened for me over the last 20, 30 years was I went back to school. I got a little bit addicted to school. I felt like it was an okay thing for me. I ended up with 3 degrees, one in women's studies, one in women's history, and one in history of healthcare policy. And during my studies and the work that ensued out of those degrees, I became very curious about how we should be supporting people who are looking to recover from any of the things that I've talked about recovering from. And I became a consultant, worked very hard with government here in British Columbia to help better identify parents who struggle with mental health issues, substance use issues, or intimate partner violence issues. The 3 things that I thought that, I had a fair bit to say about. So in 2011, as I was working kind of on some of these issues, I hit a bottom with what had become my most harmful maladaptive behavior, which was workaholism. I became an absolute crazed, quite frankly, lunatic overworking. I was overworking to such an extent that I was blacking out. My relationships were in tatters. My health was falling apart. Mentally, I was either depressed or so anxious that I could barely function. And so in February 2011, I hit the wall. I ended up just kind of hitting a really hard bottom with burnout. And I went on a leave of absence from work for 4 months and just took a really deep look at my life and started to reflect on the idea that although I had, I wasn't using substances anymore, I was in a healthy other than my workaholism relationship, I'd raised my kids, things were kind of going pretty well. I realized that I had really started using work as my drug, and I needed to look at that. And so I took 4 months off, and I started a blog called Recovering Dawn, and I started talking about how, we're just all in recovery from something, and we get to say whether something is a problem or it isn't, and then we get to figure out what we want to do about it or not. And just people kind of kept talking back to me on my blog. And when I went back to work after 4 months, I realized if I was going to get well, then I couldn't work all day and then go home and blog every evening. So I switched over to this thing called Facebook, which that was in June 2011. And at the time, I really didn't know much about Facebook. I had an account, but I wasn't using it. My younger daughter, and now co-founder of She Recovers, she's kind of the hipper amongst us. And obviously, she would not have had the same problems with the technology as I did this morning. She helped me decide that Facebook would be the way to go, because I could still continue to have this conversation about recovery and, personal practices in recovery, but I could have it on a platform that didn't take as much time. I could just post a pretty meme or share a resource. So that's what I did. I switched from my Recovering Dawn blog to the Facebook page called She Recovers. And since that time, we started a movement. We now have almost 275,000 people following us on Facebook under She Recovers. We have a secret Facebook group called She Recovers Together, which by coincidence, I love that this group is called Club Soda Together. And there's about 2,500 women or self-identifying women in that group. And it's just a great supportive place. The Facebook page, we share a lot of resources about all of the things that we're in recovery from. And there's a lot of great conversations that go on there as well. The end of 2011, as like life would have it, I went back to this job that I thought defined me and that had almost killed me. And then I kind of figured out how to moderate my working so that I could actually have a life. And after 5 months back at work, I figured out that I was balanced and I was doing okay. And the Facebook page only took like half an hour a day. And everything was good. And then I got laid off. Like, government actually had taken a dip because of the economy in the world. And they completely dissolved my unit. I had, 20 staff that were laid off, and I got laid off, but I got a year's severance package. So at that time, I decided that I wasn't going to go back to consulting necessarily, or teaching, which I had also been doing, or working in government, but that I was going to turn my direction to support more women and families in recovery. And so I took a recovery coach training course, and I started to think about how I could do something with this thing that was just a Facebook page called She Recovers, but within a year already had about 10,000 followers. So my daughter, Taryn, quite coincidentally or not, if you believe in coincidences, she was a yoga teacher, and she had been training in yoga for recovery in North America. So she took some really great training for yoga teachers that was trauma informed, and taught them about supporting people who were addicted. And so she and I and a friend of ours in Mexico who had just moved down to the Mayan Riviera came up with this ballsy idea. We thought of having a yoga and recovery retreat. So our first retreat was held in Tulum, Mexico, on the beach in Tulum in November 2012. And I will tell you that just last week, Taryn and I came back from our 29th She Recovers retreat. 15 or 16 of them have been in Mexico. We do others here on the West Coast on a beautiful little hippie island called Salt Spring Island. And we've been doing that since 2014. And we go there again this July for 3 retreats. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Jacqueline. And we've been to Bali. We did 3 retreats in Bali, and we want to do some in Europe. So now, again, a few years in of this thing called She Recovers, and I went back to consulting. I wasn't really doing too much recovery coaching because I couldn't make a living at it, and I needed to make a living. So I went back to consulting, and we were doing retreats, and we just kind of went along for a few years like that. It was quite wonderful. And then in 2016, we decided, and actually the people in our community asked, sorry, honey, I'm on a webinar right now. Are you okay? I'm good. Thank you. I kind of sent my husband this, oh my gosh, where are the earbuds? And tried to figure out all these things that I obviously didn't figure out. Anywho, in about 2016, our community was saying they wanted more than just retreats and they wanted something that was bigger. So we decided to plan a She Recovers conference. And our first conference was called She Recovers in New York City. We held it in Lower Manhattan, May 5th to 7th in 2017. We had some amazing, amazing keynote speakers. I don't know if you know all of them in the United Kingdom, but we had Gabrielle Bernstein. She's got a book called Spirit Junkie, and Marianne Williamson, who now is running for president of the United States, as it so happens. You may know Marianne from A Return to Love. And let me just see what Laura's saying here. Laura, I'll continue on. Anyway, so we started doing conferences, and then we did She Recovers in LA last September. We're going to do She Recovers in Miami next May. So that's a little bit about what we're about. You know, we've been doing conferences, we've been doing retreats, we have meetups. In fact, we're hoping to start one in London and in Paris. We've got them one in Sydney, Australia, and we've got them starting all over the United States and Canada as well. We have a coaching program, so we train women to become recovery coaches. And when they become recovery coaches, they then go on our Hire a Recovery Coach page on our website, and then they can actually start a She Recovers sharing circle. So they're starting again all over the world. So Laura's saying, in your webinar description, you talk about the fact that we're all recovering from something. This truth that every one of us has a thing or two that we need to address to live our healthiest, happiest lives. What are those one or two things? For me, right now, I still struggle with workaholism. I still don't know how to turn off my brain, and I get really wrapped up in being a kind of productivity junkie. I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but I just, I'll have a to-do list, and it's like I'm adrenaline seeking. As I'm checking things off, I get a little hit. It's lighting up that area of my brain that says, yes, I like that. Give me more. So work is still what I am recovering from. I'm also recovering from cancer. I ended up with cancer in 2005. And although, I'm very well, and I've been well for years, I did a year of chemotherapy. It's still something that I always kind of keep at the back of my mind. I hope that it directs me to live a more joyful and grateful life every day. And the other things that I'm recovering from are grief. My mom died in the year 2000. And so those are the things that I'm recovering from. And I guess what I know, Laura, about how do we find out what our one or two things are, it's those things that are really holding you back from doing the things you want to do. And I get that doesn't mean that your things are going to be everybody else's things, right? I know that there are people for whom, for instance, if we use the idea of alcohol, for some people, they can drink moderately. It's not holding them back from anything. It's not creating negative consequences in their life. But for others, and, in my view, I think that people know when substances are affecting them. I think that how we find out is we just kind of trust our gut, that we know when things are not going well for us. That doesn't mean that we're able to address them right away. It doesn't mean that we're going to recover from them completely. But I think just being aware of those things. I mean, for how many of us have gotten into a relationship and known very quickly that, whoa, there's some red flags here, and this is probably not going to be the relationship of my life. And yet we maybe don't trust ourselves and we stay in a little bit longer. So I think relationships are something that a lot of women talk about having to recover from, kind of unhealthy attachments to unhealthy relationships. I guess, it's a really good question. How do we find out what our one or two things are? What are the things that cause you grief, that upset you, that cause you to go, oh my gosh, not this again? My daughter Taryn teaches yoga, and I can't remember who she quotes, but there's this really, really powerful phrase, I think, that, you get to this place where you're doing something is going on for you, and in your head you hear the words, not this. Like, this is not me. This is not who I want to be. This is not what I want to do. And that's usually a pretty good indication that whatever that is, that not this thing is, that it's something you might want to look at. And maybe you don't. I mean, maybe you just want to kind of be aware that there's something you might want to look at somewhere down the road. I'm a student of psychology, and I believe very clearly in the stages of change, which is a theory that says we're not going to change until we're ready to, right? And so that there's all these different stages of change. There's kind of pre-contemplation, when I think maybe I'm going to think about not working so much. And then at a certain point, I move along into action and I'm like, okay, now actually I'm not working on Mondays because I have my granddaughter on Mondays. And that's action. And then after many months of not working on Mondays, I can look and say, okay, I'm actually in maintenance on the Mondays. And now I'm going to stop working after 8 o'clock at night. So I think we just kind of, if any of you have a meditation practice and you can get quiet with yourself, you can ask yourself, what are my not thises? And maybe you don't have any. And that's okay too, right? I don't want to pathologize that everybody has something wrong with them. I think the best way to design and implement our own individualized pathway and patchwork towards healing is really just to do a lot of research, to ask a lot of people. I mean, you have this wonderful community. There's so many online communities. Club Soda, you can meet so many people, not just online, but in person. Ask lots of questions. Identify if you've got a thing and you're looking at it, then just ask a lot of questions of other people, of yourself. Obviously, you can consult with professionals. I always say that, in our community, Women in Recovery, they're using, maybe 5 things, right? They're using blogs, which are very helpful. They're using podcasts. They're using Facebook groups like this one. They're doing in-person events, whether that's a retreat or a meetup, or, we have a series coming up right now. We're doing a 6-city tour across North America. We'll be in Toronto in June. We were in Chicago last month, and we're going to San Diego, New York City, Seattle, and Nashville this year. So these in-person, actually kind of in-person events where you can go and get information, maybe educational events in your community. And then I think the 5th one for me is just reach out to somebody. So whether that's at an event or in one of your groups, you'll see somebody who's talking about their particular pathway or patchwork or what they're employing for them to kind of work on their stuff. I almost said shit, but I didn't want to swear. And you kind of know, wow, I'm curious about that. I'm interested in that. Reach out. I don't know very many people, if they are sharing about how they're healing, that don't want to share that. It's almost like this pay it forward attitude, right? I've been so freely supported by so many people in my life that if somebody asks me for support, I want to give it back. And I'm just dead serious about that. I think the main thing is just to try lots of different things. And again, if I want to use the example of alcohol, just because it's easy, kind of people can kind of cotton on to what is that all about. People will suggest sometimes rather harshly, you must go to an AA meeting. I always recommend that anybody who's is truly thinks they have a problem with alcohol, that they do check out a 12-step program. But I mean, check it out. I don't mean go and sign up and get a sponsor and do all those things immediately. I mean, check it out. See if it's going to work for you. Look at what other people are doing. Read all the books. That's the other thing. I think, I've had 6th thing on the list. So many books out there. A lot of them are by people in the UK. There's some amazing women in Australia and North America who are writing. We have a reading room on our website that just lists tons of different resources. Bibliotherapy, right? Kind of the therapy of reading books. So I think that that's a good way as well to figure out what you want to do. I also think that, and this is not to be self-promoting, but hire a coach. It doesn't have to be one of our coaches, but if you have the resources to hire a coach or consult with somebody or find a professional other than a coach who can help you sort out what your approach is going to be, then do that. Do the research and then just start trying things. Recovery is a practice, and it is about trying on different things and feeling into what fits for you. Try yoga, try walking. Walking is one of my great self-care kind of activities. I have to walk, I have to move, and I have to get fresh air. So that's part of my pathway. I read a lot of books that are important and they're helpful, but I read a lot of fiction too. I go to bed every night with a novel. That's part of my self-care. It's part of my routine. The main thing is just to practice, and as things fit, then kind of lock them in a little bit more, right? Maybe if walking works, then keep walking. Make a regular practice of it and create a practice, maybe a daily practice or a weekly practice. But I would really say, Laura, that the bottom line for me around developing our own pathways and patchwork is just make sure it feels right for you and that you practice it, that you try it on And if it doesn't, then you just try something else and you just keep trying. And that doesn't mean that you don't go back to something that you tried earlier that maybe didn't fit for you earlier on your healing journey. But again, it's kind of meet yourself where you are. If you are grieving, then you just want to be in grief. That's part of your healing journey. That's part of your patchwork, is you're just going to stay in bed and cry for as long as you can, possibly. And then you're going to get up and you're going to seek some support. And support might just be telling somebody, I'd like to ask you to do something for me. Go and get me some food, whatever it is. I just can't stress enough the importance of you feeling empowered to create bringing into your life those things that are going to be those things that will help you heal and grow and fulfill your potential, right? I mean, again, going back to my idea, well, the idea not mine necessarily, that recovery is just about reaching our potential. And I don't in any way want to come across like I just have this sunny, bright, beautiful life. I do have a sunny, bright, beautiful life most days, but I can still get absolutely crazy in my head. I can still get wired on work. I can still get obsessive thinking about things. I can worry myself into a frenzy about things. But regardless of what I'm going through, I've been doing this for so long that I always know that there's something that I can do to rewire what's going on in my brain, right? Or try to. Today I'm going to go for a long walk. And I'm going actually to a She Recovers sharing circle that's being held this afternoon. And I'm going to walk there instead of drive there, even though I think it's going to take me a really long time. But it's the only way I can get my walk into today. So that's what I'm going to do. Jacqueline, I'm glad. Reading is just so helpful. And there are a lot of online programs as well, right? I mean, there's so many things that you can sign up for and get support that way. I'm just always amazed at the amount of free support there is in groups like this group and like She Recovers Together and other groups that a lot of women I know who are in recovery from substance use disorder have been a part of. I mean, we've been doing this since 2011. She Recovers has been around since 2011. And I believe that our growth is really predicated on the idea that we have seen and watched and supported all of the great work that everybody else has been doing in this space. And we've promoted and shared other people's offerings. We're not in any way out to carve a niche that is uniquely ours. We believe that we're stronger together. And whether it's here in Canada, where I live, or in North America, or, pulling in people from all across the globe, it is our goal, absolutely, to make sure that women feel connected, supported, and empowered to do whatever they need to do. I think that, we're starting with women, right? I know there's some guys on here, and it's not like that we want to disregard you and the importance of my husband, who just walked in on me a little while ago. He's been 30 years in recovery from substance use disorder. He's awesome. And I think it's really, it's imperative that we recognize that relationships are important. We need to heal ourselves as a woman, and as a mom, I need to heal so that my children have a better opportunity to grow up in a healthy family, which I believe they have. My husband, as a recovering father, has tried to do his best. And I think that, we recover as individuals and then we recover as families, which just overflows into our communities, right? And hi, Maura. Oh my gosh, from Ireland. I haven't seen you since New York City. It's just amazing to see you pop up there. And hi, Alejandra. And isolation, it is so bad. And I do encourage anybody. I want to talk about this for a minute. We talk about connect, support, and empower. And this is an online platform, and we know the power of this platform. But what I love about Club Soda is what I love about She Recovers too, is that we have really, really tried hard to, as often as we can and as much as we are able, to create in real life opportunities for people to connect. Because I think that although we get such great support from one another online, it can also actually keep us isolated. So the more that we can connect with each other and continue to, share our resources, share our stories, I think the better we really will be, right? Moira, it's just great to see your name. I hope you're coming to Miami next May 1st to 3rd. Lisa, you're going to go walking too. I don't know where everybody is today, but here on the West Coast, it's absolutely gorgeous. It rained all day yesterday, and we weren't convinced we were going to have a nice day today. But it's really sunny and beautiful. I want to just share with you a little bit about our community. We've done a little bit of cross-sectional research, and although this was just a survey that had about 800 women who answered, it's quite representative of the statistics of what we've seen elsewhere. So in our community, the respondents of this survey, we know that about 80% are in recovery from substance use disorder. That's alcohol and drugs. Another 55% actually have identified as having a mental health disorder. In many cases, it's anxiety and or depression, other disorders, bipolar and et cetera, but anxiety and depression for sure, the most common. 40% identify as having struggles with codependency, 25% with disordered eating or eating disorders, 40% identify as being in recovery from trauma. I'm a strong believer that the majority of us who are in substance use recovery do have some sort of adverse childhood experience or childhood trauma. And I don't mean capital T trauma necessarily. For some of us, it's neglect, which is also a trauma. Birth trauma can actually affect people. I mean, my daughter's much better at this part of it because she teaches very much about intergenerational trauma and about how we hold trauma in our bodies. I love Yorkshire, Jacqueline. I've been to York. I went to a conference there and I absolutely loved it. 35% in this survey identified as being in recovery from abuse, and that's sexual, physical, or emotional. 30% in recovery from grief, and 20% from burnout. Of all of the people that identified as being in recovery, only 40% identified 12-step recovery as being their primary recovery pathway if they were in recovery from substance use disorder, which says a lot. I think it says that there are about 60% of this survey population that is in recovery from substance use disorder doing it other ways. I speak ill of no 12-step program. One saved my life. I'm still a member of one. I'm not particularly active in it. But yeah, I absolutely have respect for all pathways, and we criticize none, really. David, yes, intergenerational trauma. It's just something I think that we all can think back about our parents and their parents. Certainly in my case, actually, the trauma in my family began when my British grandfather from Manchester went to the war in World War II, and he came back a broken man. I mean, he was a banjo playing, lovely, happy person, young, and came back with an addiction problem, drugs and alcohol, and anger and violence. And that just kind of perpetuated. So what I want to do is, in this, I'm so happy to be able to tell you about She Recovers in this community. I'm also going to host Laura on our She Recovers Facebook page sometime this summer. And I just want to pass on to you that Laura says, if anyone wants to organize a Club Soda local meetup, to let her know. All of the Club Soda events are run by local members and supported by Club Soda. So I was looking today. I'm not sure, Laura, if you've got a new website or if it just looks a little different than last time. I spent a lot of time on it. But I loved today when I went to your events page, how clear it was where they all are. So I'm going to go back on my computer after this call, and I'm going to share on our big She Recovers page the link to the events page on your website, because I just think it's remarkable how much you're doing. Our meetups are, much smaller and more kind of spread out. They do them about once a month, and they're just starting. So it's just, a couple of women in each community getting together with a few more. I mean, I think we're averaging about 10 to 12 people at our meetups. So they're not quite events as you guys are all planning, but you're certainly giving us some great ideas. And I'm just so excited to have made a connection with Laura and with all of you to tell you a little bit about what's going on this side of the pond. Our next big thing probably is She Recovers in Miami. It'll be our next big women's conference. It'll be May 1st to 3rd in Miami in 2020. And on the day before that conference starts, we're actually going to be hosting a professionals conference. So, hi, Donna. So the professionals conference will be called She Recovers, New Ways to Wellness, a symposium for healing professionals. And it'll be a one-day workshop day symposium hosted by our partners at Hazel and Betty Ford, professionals will be able to attend and earn professional credits for doing that. What we really want to do is bring kind of the professionals and the people who are doing a lot of the work, the academic work and the thought leadership around women in recovery with the rest of us who are the consumers. And really what I always talk about is, you know, it's women and it's organizations like Club Soda who are forging a new way in wellness and healthy pathways. And we have so much to teach the academics who have for so many years been kind of stuck on looking at recovery, if we're using the term recovery, from within that dichotomy of are people going to 12-step programs or not? You know, there hasn't been a lot of attention in the academy yet paid to the sober curious movement, and it's like such an amazing thing. People need to pay more attention to it. We need to look at everything, all behaviors along the spectrum. So I've probably gone on way too long. I know that it took me a really long time just to get this started. I apologize again for being such a ditz. I want to tell you that I actually did finally find my husband's earbuds that are wireless, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get them working. So that didn't work. So I think that maybe I haven't been upside down this entire time, and I'm glad about that. I really do thank Laura for her patience with me. It must be very frustrating to get on a call. We thought everything was cool until I realized that I couldn't plug my headphones into my phone. And then she's probably just sitting there thinking what a techno dolt I am. But that is who I am, apparently, and I'm just going to have to be okay with that. So, yes, I do want to say that everything that I've talked about is, well, I mean it for everybody. Our events at this moment are for women identified individuals only. And we're doing that quite purposefully, right? It's just we're trying to create a space just for she. But all of the things that I've talked about with regard to healing and pathways is you know, it's for everybody. It's absolutely for everybody. And I think that our resources, other than our events, are for everybody. The books that are on our site. You know, and I think that I love that you, Laura and Club Soda, do include everybody. And I think we talk at She Recovers about moving from She Recovers to then starting He Recovers. And eventually, you know, we recover and moving in that direction. But I feel very strongly from a personal perspective that the way we're doing it, you know, starting with women first is the right way for us. So Mandy, I can't wait till Miami too. I'm excited to see you. And David, thank you. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I'm going to let you all go and enjoy your evening in the UK. You've got a bank holiday tomorrow, which nobody in North America actually knows what a bank holiday is, but I do, because I do have my roots are in Manchester. So anybody wants any more information, just send me an email. I'm dawn@sherecovers.co. And if you want to join our She Recovers Together group, you can just find me on Facebook. I'm Dawn Nickel, DAWNNICKEL. It is a private group, not just a closed group like this one, so you do have to be invited. And you can find out anything else you need to know about She Recovers on our website, www.sherecovers.co. Jacqueline, thank you very much for joining, and Charlotte, you too. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Lisa. Now I just have to find out how to finish. Wouldn't that be funny if I just couldn't do that? But I can. Thanks.